German population were being starved because of the British Navy's blockade of Germany's ports in the north. German troops were poorly equipped and fed very little. Germany's army collapsed in the autumn of 1918 when the Allies launched a joint attack on German lines. A number of Germans simply didn't accept that they had lost the war. Germans put blame on the weak politicians and not military exhaustion.
Wilhelm deliberated over whether to abdicate as both the Kaiser and as King of Prussia. However, on the 9th of November 1918, Chancellor Prince Max of Baden made Wilhelm's decision a lot easier when he announced the Kaiser's abdication of both titles. The day after his abdication was announced, Wilhelm crossed the border by train and went into exile in the Netherlands. Wilhelm was described as the greatest criminal in history by his cousin King George V. Despite abdicating, Wilhelm never formally relinquished his titles as he hoped to return to Germany in the future. The Treaty of Versailles was signed on the 28th of June 1919 and effectively made Germany take the blame for World War I. Germany was hit in 4 ways. This can be shortened to LAM. L is for land. They lost 13% of their land and 10% of their population. A is for army. Their army was limited to 10,000 men and military aircraft, and submarines and tanks were also outlawed weapons. M stands for money. They had to pay 6,000 million in reparations. And B is for blame. They had to take responsibility for the war.
By 1923, the government had 300 paper mills and 2,000 printing shops, solely to print money. This initially made it easy for the government to pay back reparations, but made inflation worse. Contextually, in 1919, a loaf of bread cost 1 mark. By 1922, it cost 200 marks, and by 1923 it cost upwards of 200,000 million marks. £1 was equal to 20 billion marks in 1923. People would collect their wages in suitcases and would usually collect their wages twice a day as inflation moved so quickly that their morning wages would be worthless. In this picture we can see 2 German children standing by a stack of marks. This stack of marks was equal to $1 American, which the boy is holding in his hand.
Wow, it's almost as tall as me.
Ebert replaced Kaiser Wilhelm after his abdication and was a member of the Social Democrat Party. He faced opposition from the Spartakists who believed that changes Ebert had made were not drastic enough. On the 31st of December 1918, they renamed themselves the German Communist Party and began to plan to seize power from Ebert. The Spartakists began their rising on January the 5th, 1919. They occupied public buildings, organised a general strike and formed a revolutionary committee. All in all, the Spartakists were not a threat. On the 4th of January, Ebert put together a volunteer force of 4,000 soldiers, which were called Freikorps. On the 10th of January, the Freikorps captured a newspaper factory the Spartakists occupied. The Spartakists were either beat up or shot. On the 12th of January, Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht were caught and murdered.